happily restless seekers. Happily restless seekers. These are the phrase that Pope Francis used this morning when he reflected upon these parables. I want to kind of guide this phrase with you. Are you a happily restless seeker? These past 2 Sundays, and today's the 3rd Sunday, we are reflecting upon Matthew chapter 13. There are 7 parables together, and each of the parables is to help us to see the reign of God, the kingdom of God, as Jesus teaching with the disciples and the crowds that are coming and following him to listen to his wisdom in many ways. So the first Sunday, I looked at upon 4 conditions how we can be disciples of Jesus as we live in God's kingdom, as we live here on earth. So we look at the seed, the sower, the climate, as ways that we can be conditions as disciples of Jesus Christ. And last Sunday, when we look at the parable between the wheat and the weeds, and then the mustard seed, I reflect upon this whole areas of how do we create a healthy home, a healthy environment that we lived in. So today on this final 3 more parables of the treasures, the pearls, and the nets, I want to delve into what Pope Francis' reflection this morning, to be happily restless seekers. Plato has this beautiful thought. He said, man, or human beings, is a being in search of meaning. Human beings is a person in search of meaning. Is that true with all of us? To look for that pearl, to looking for that net full of fish. And we are in search of that constantly. And we're not happy until all those come to fulfillment. But Pope Francis also today inviting us to look at these 3 parables to be happily restless seekers. For him, when we are happily restless seekers, we become very creative in the way that we live. Even though following the footsteps of Jesus Christ will demand a lot of sacrifices. There are costs, what we call the cost of discipleships. Giving up certain desires, certain aspect of our lives so that we can attune our life and align our life to the commandments of God and to the love of Jesus Christ that is there presented to all of us. So to be helpless or to be happily restless seekers is to see that beautiful gift of what King Solomon talks about this morning. In his dreams, all he asks of God is very simple. He said, "Give your servant, therefore, an understanding heart to judge your people and to distinguish right from wrong. For who is able to govern this vast people of yours?" So wisdom then maybe is to show and to see that creativity to help you to be happy, at the same time restless seekers. As we encounter the various situations of our life, sometimes can be very challenging, other times can be very difficult. And that's what it calls to be happy and restless at the same time. And without that gift of wisdom, it's so hard to do. Confucius had this beautiful thought, how do I gain wisdom in my life? 3 simple steps. And how do you gain wisdom in your life before I give you that answer? And some can be very basic. And other can be very complicated. That may need some more education, some more learning, some more failures maybe in our life to do that. So this is what he said. By 3 methods we can learn wisdom. First, by reflections, which is the noblest. Reflect all the events that's happened in your life, both the past and the present. Second, by imitations, which is the easiest. As a child growing up, we imitate our parents, what they do, what they don't do, their habits, and we learn to imitate one another. Younger people imitate from older people. Sometimes older people imitate from younger people. You know, sometimes it's really funny for me to see someone in their 60s and 70s having a mohawk haircut. or shave that side of their head as if they were only still in 20s. Because they're still restless, maybe. Or maybe still they're very happy with their life. They want to totally express that. Third, he said, by experience, which is the bitter rest. How interesting. Why would experience life can bring bitter rest? Bitterness, including restlessness. Create a new term maybe, bitter rest. True, life experiences can be bitter, but can also be very happy. So those are the three experiences, he said. So I just recap. Reflections, imitations, and experiences. He gained wisdom, and maybe that's the way that we should live our life. For millennial who's here, 30s, or a little less than 40s maybe. Living your first half of life, you can see all of that. To see that pearl of great joy, to see that treasures and gave up everything and buy that land and buy that pearl to satisfy your happiness. But as some of us, many of us who are here, who are living in our second half of life, in our 50s, 60s, and older, I challenged Pope Francis meditation this morning. Happily and restless seekers. I don't think I want to be restless. I want to be peaceful. So I want to introduce you another thought in who I am living my second half of life. I want to be happy, healthy, and peaceful seekers. That restless seekers is I think I'm over with that. I want to be peaceful at this stage, the second half of my life. We live in this part of the pandemic. Healthily, being healthy is so important. I've seen friends who are in their 60s or older who are having difficulties with their health. And I'm going through difficulties with my health. I can't eat things that I want to do, drink things that I want to used to drink. You learn to discipline yourself. So how do we transition ourselves from what Pope Francis is inviting us to be healthily restless seekers to become happy, healthy, and peaceful seekers? Dr. Robert Holden, in 2011, wrote this book, who's a psychologist. He coined the terms of beware of destinations addictions. Destinations addictions. Something that will help you and me to find peaceful, happy, and healthy, and avoid being restless in our second half of life. His definition is this: a preoccupation with the idea that happiness is in the next place, the next job, and the next partner. The next place, the next job, and the next partners. That's when you will fulfill your happiness. And people who caught into that futures, placing happiness as a destination, you will fall into this term, what he calls it, destinations addictions. And so he said that until you give up the idea that happiness is somewhere else, it will never be where you are. So we are becoming, especially we are living here in this part of this social dynamic, social media dynamic being, that happiness has to be somewhere else. We no longer live in the now, but we live in the not now ideology or mentality. You and I, in order for us to find this restless seekers or peaceful seekers, we need to live in the now. And that's what, when Jesus came, he said, the kingdom of God is not in heaven. It's not that next heaven that you're looking for, but it is here because I am here with you. So create this reign of God in your midst. So for us who live in the second half of life, let us avoid falling in a trap of destinations addictions. And so he said here, do you live your life only to get to the end of it? Most people would say no, but in reality we do. And so he said people who suffer from destination addiction believe that success is somewhere in the futures. And so he said each passing moment for these people is merely a ticket to get to the futures. They live in a way psychologically absent, and they disregard everything they have. So we suffer literally from pursuit of happiness, where we are always on the run, on the move, and on the go. That's who I was 10 years ago, maybe just 5 years ago. Was always on the run, on the move. So let us kind of reflect upon these two parables, or these three parables. For young millennial here, you are wonderfully, healthily, happy, restless seekers. Go out and explore that, every part of your beings. And for those of us who live in the second half of life, let us see where we are and who we are. That we don't need to be restless anymore. We want to be peaceful. And so how do we cultivate and avoid falling into this trap of being destination addictions? First, let us explore this area of what I call it, human beings need relationship to enjoy optimum well-being and happiness. So we learn to engage. 10 friends that I may have, now I only have 3. These 3 friends truly reconnect with me and I connect with them. They kind of help me to overcome what I call, what Confucius called this developing this wisdom. I don't want to imitate people anymore. I don't want to experience anymore. Maybe it's about moments of reflections. Reflecting what's happening. Is stop from imitating what people do and be your own authentic self. Second, being kind to others is essential. Finding a sense of personal happiness. During this pandemic, kindness is ever important. As we live in a closer environment, people we're familiar with, people we love so much and we characterize and we box them so much, it is time that we need to show even greater kindness. Maybe sometimes you may need a little distance so that you could be healthy, but other time now you need to come back and show that little kindness. And third, acknowledging the abundance of your own life. Experiencing gratitude. Yesterday was the Feast of St. James the Apostles. And so I posted on my Facebook a little clipping. And in that clipping it showed 4 different types of hugs. Hugs of faith, hugs of joy, hugs of gratitude, hugs of hopes. And that in many ways reflect for me how to be happy, how to be healthy, and how to be peaceful. We live in this environment. I can't even hug you. I can't even shake your hands. Not even fist bump or elbow hit. I can't do that. But how then do we do and channel part of your own sense of life and seeing, I am grateful. And stop being maybe that bitter rest. So let's go forward this day for young millennial, for millennial, future generations. Please be healthily restless seekers. But for all of us, let us be happy, healthy, and peaceful. Thank you.